And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Touching You Talk Show. And we are doing our special podcast of Ask an Autism Mom.
Hi,
I am
everybody.
I am Rochelle Kent. I am one of your hosts. And here on Ask an Autism Mom, we are a podcast where we will talk about life. We will talk about faith. And we are going to talk about the grace that comes as we try to handle both of those as we're navigating through the journey of autism. And now I will send it over to our other wonderful host, Dr. Yolanda McKinney.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yolanda McKinney. And like my amazing co host said, we're just two moms out here raising our amazing children who just happen to be on the autism spectrum. We're learning more and more every day how to trust God in the middle of this thing that none of us really planned for. So we are excited for tonight's episode.
And before we go any further, I want to make sure that you pull up your phone or your laptop and you go to your Facebook and you share and you repost and you like. This is a conversation. It's called Ask an Autism Mom, not just listen to an autism mom. So please make sure you're in the comments. Right now, I am going to share myself so that everybody knows we are live and they can come in and submit their questions as well. There we go. We got it up there and it's going. Now, today's episode, we are going to be focusing on the topic of this cannot be real. Autism diagnosis and denial. Okay. So, as we know, a lot of times when we are receiving that diagnosis from our child, there is for our child, we get told a whole bunch of nevers. But before we even get to really process all of that, it's that first sentence of your child has autism. And so a whole bunch of emotions and a whole bunch of thoughts and everything overwhelms us. Do you feel the same way, Dr.
Oh,
Yolanda?
absolutely. I think when you hear those words, it really can shake you to the core. Like, our first thought is never the strength. We always want to do something to get rid of it. Like, I'm going to be able to pray this away. I'm going to be able to explain it away. I'm just going to sit here and pretend it wasn't true. So I do believe that that is a time, a moment that just really shakes you. And to your point earlier, you never really hear anything positive, right? They flat out start with autism and then all the no, no. I think I heard someone call it the no day or the not day, right? The day when
Mhm.
they tell you everything your child's not going to do. But there are some things we've learned, right?
Yeah. And what we want to remember is like scripture tells us in Proverbs 3 and 5, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. Listen, the reason one of what I like to tell people when people are like, oh, autism is a spectrum, and they say it's a spectrum because it's scientific. I tell people it's a spectrum because listen, we can't lean into our own understanding about this. There's so many questions and
Right.
we're all trying to figure it out. And for myself, and I absolutely know Dr. Yolanda feels the same way. Our faith helps us on
Yep.
this journey, and it helps us have understanding and knowledge on how to best travel this journey with our children.
Yeah. So today, I think we're just going to talk about some of the first stages that you might face, right? The denial. And then, of course, like you mentioned before, our faith. So, how God walks us through the disbelief. And at some point, you've got to leave the disbelief section, segment, whatever you want to call it, right? And get over to the peace. So we're just here, right? And you and I are here. We talk it out about our faith, the things that make us cry and give us the tears, the things that our kiddos do that make us laugh, and most importantly, the grace that we have to give ourselves because we don't know it all. And I feel like every day I'm learning something new about my son. I'm sure you feel the same.
Right.
And then we know that there are parents out there who feel alone, ashamed, confused. So we really just want to be here to provide a safe space for parents to talk about that shock and that faith and that denial, because whether or not we want to admit it, there is a part that happens that you have to grieve over all the things
Right.
you thought would, should, could, and you have to accept the life that you're living now. So yeah.
So, as you were speaking, you were talking about that initial shock.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, could you kind of share with us? I know that you did in one of our previous podcasts, but can you share again what were your initial shock, your initial emotions when your son first was diagnosed?
So I think my initial shock was sadness, right? I didn't know what kind of life he was going to have, and I didn't know what the life was going to look like for our family anymore. And so I was really sad, right? Once I got over the shock, then I just became really sad. And maybe a little, I would say, fearful, because I didn't know what was coming up. Um, and as much as I would like to say I immediately leaned on my faith, I did not. That's just me being real. I was very angry, right there. This that all I can say is it felt like all the stages that you go through when something dies. It felt just like grief, right? So the
Yes.
fear, the anger, the shock, the all of those things, and they still come. They say that autism is a spectrum, but so are the emotions. So are
Yeah.
everything else that happens in in your life and everything else you're going through. All of that is a spectrum too. So I would say those are the emotions that I felt. What would you say?
I absolutely agree. I was going to say the same thing. I felt like I was going through the grieving process. I was in denial. I was like, not my baby. How dare
Hmm.
you tell me that my child has a low IQ? How
Right.
dare
Yeah.
you? Especially, I was one of those elder millennial gifted and talented children.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
what do you mean I have a child who has a low, not,
Yeah.
what?
Not my
No,
baby.
not
Right.
not my baby. How
Yeah.
dare you? And I went through the anger, and I don't want to tell his story for him, but even my
Right.
ex-husband, that was one of the cracks that came up in our marriage was the, oh no, now he has this diagnosis, he'll never be able to get a job, he'll never
Hmm.
be able to do anything because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Right. Right.
And so just all of that. And so then it was, and then I did have a short moment of hope because I was like, well, if there's a diagnosis, there has to be support and information
Mm.
overwhelmingly
Mm.
for this, right?
And then
Right. I'm like, I'll just get on Google and I'll figure it
yeah,
out. There's
I
special
hear you. I
pediatricians
hear
for
you.
this. And then I get out there and I'm like, oh,
There's nothing.
yes, this is like this is like ad lib. Just figure it
Hmm.
out as you go along. I and then so then the fear and the frustration came back again. Like, okay, God, what are we doing? What how am I supposed to navigate this? So it's good to know that you and I um, shared that kind of that fear and that anger and like you said, it's the feeling of going through grief, you know.
Hmm. And I think you always, as a mother, you always want to know, like, did I miss a sign? Did I do something wrong? Right? Because
Yes.
my son didn't get his diagnosis until he was 4, right? And so
Mhm.
in my head, I'm thinking, what did I miss along the way? Like, what did I not see? And then, of course, you have the mom guilt. Did I do something wrong? Did I eat something I shouldn't have eaten? Did I take a medication I shouldn't have taken? Did I like all the things, like, because the doctors don't have an explanation. And so then you try to come up with a logical explanation. And then you just have that, it's just guilt. I don't even know another word to describe it.
Right.
Although should have, would have, could have.
And even a
Yeah.
feeling of like loneliness in that
Yes.
moment. You feel like you have just been left alone? Because who do you talk to? Who can you call up? And when you call them up and you're like, yeah, he just got diagnosed with autism. Okay, so what does that mean? Not even
They
100%
right.
sure.
They start asking you all the questions that you don't have answers to, and then you feel really inadequate, right? And so if you're like me, I went down the I need to know everything I can possibly know about autism, right? So I'm reading
Yes,
everything, I'm Googling everything. And that, Rochelle, that was the worst thing I could have possibly done because there was nothing positive out there, right? Which is why I said we need to do this podcast, which is why I have a blog, which is why, because I want people to know that it's not a death sentence, right?
right.
Yes, it's going to be different. Yes, it's going, but it does not have to be something that turns your world upside down. Will it shift things? Absolutely.
Yeah,
Will it make things be a little bit different than what you had expected? Absolutely. But do you have the capacity to handle it? Absolutely.
absolutely.
Are there days that are tough, struggle? Yeah, absolutely, right? But
Right.
I think once you get past that initial, that thing where you feel like your faith and your fear are fighting each other, right? Like, I'm
Ooh,
over
yeah,
here. I know, God, that I have the faith, right? We've all been given,
right.
a certain amount of faith. But then there's this fear over here. And how it's like, the tug of war thing. So how can I pull so hard on the faith side that the fear side just falls down, right? I always think of it as just like this rope that's just pulling, especially when you first get the diagnosis. And then it happens every stage, right, Rochelle? Like when your kids
Yes.
are infants, and then when
Mhm.
they get to, like school age, and
Elementary
then like
school. Yes.
it never goes away, right? It just never goes
Never.
away. Yeah.
And and with what you're how you're talking about it, and I think it, and you and I, we have this similar drive. Put a mountain in front of us, we're going to go get some gear and climb that bad boy,
Yes,
kind of thing.
absolutely.
So with that fear, can you tell us, you already said you have a blog, we're doing a podcast. How did that fear, but even before then, before we got to this part, because a lot of
Mhm.
people see this part and they're like, wow, you're so strong. You're such a
Mm.
strong, before we got, just like
Yes.
working out in the gym, we had to build up that muscle. Can you explain
Mhm.
to us how like that fear and those emotions at the initial diagnosis like pushed you? What did it push you to do?
That's a great question. I think it pushed me to, first of all, get out of what I would call my funk, right? Because I went through, the fear had almost crippled me, right? To the point where I'm just going to keep my son isolated, right? Because I don't want anybody saying anything about him. I don't want to have to get out of character if somebody says something they shouldn't say about my baby, right? So
Right.
initially, it I was very isolated, right? But I have the type of family who's not even going to allow that. Like, girl, what are you
Right.
doing? Right? Like, he's your baby, but he's our baby. Like, this is what we do, right? And
Right.
so I think the gentle prompting, and then I pray, right? I No matter what is happening, no matter all, somehow or another, even if it's just help me. Like, I
Mm.
say what I need to say, and that's how I get out of whatever place I'm in. And so that fear just couldn't, it's almost like you just literally have to fight through it, because there's no other way. Because if you let it grip you up, you're just going to be, I don't even know, despondent, sad, depressed, and
Yeah.
nobody wants to
That's,
do that. Nobody wants to do that.
yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I feel like I have a similar thing. It was very much a for me, it became, if I'm going through this, I refuse to let another mom go through it. So for me, I would love to say that it was mainly 100% just for my son,
Right.
but
Right.
I had this thing like, oh no, I know how bad I felt. I don't want another mom ever to feel this amount of loneliness and fear, because there's some moms, unfortunately, and we see it in the news, they just, the fear overcomes them,
Hmm.
you know
Absolutely.
and,
Absolutely.
and unfortunately horrible things happen, even if they don't do something to themselves or their children. Their health takes them out,
Yeah.
because the stress eats away from them from the inside out. And I was like, I'm never going to let another mom go through that. So I was like, let me be a one-stop shop, so people can feel free to come to me and be like, okay, how do I go through? What doctors do I go to? What's the difference between them being autistic for educational purposes at school and a
Hmm.
medical diagnosis? Do I even need a
Yes,
medical
ma'am.
diagnosis?
Right.
You know,
Right.
the fact that I fought all of that, what's the since I homeschool, what's the best or what type of curriculum do you suggest?
Yes.
Just small things like that. It was like, okay, let me fight for that other mom that's coming behind me, because I know my child's not the first, nor will he be the last child to ever have autism. So
And I wish I could say that that was my first inclination. I applaud you for that. That was not the first thing my head went through, right? All I could see, Rochelle, was everything that was in front of me, right?
right,
He's 4. My life as I knew it, like the whole, when he turns 18, when he turns 21, when he moves out of the house, like all of that just went away. And all I
yeah,
could see was, okay, this is what's going to be for the rest of my life. And I need to prepare now so that my son's taken care of for the rest of his life. Eventually, I got to the place where I knew that, Yolanda, you've got to share what you've learned with
right.
these other moms out there who you see. That was not my first my first inclination
But no,
at
that's
all.
great. No, that's great, because I think for me, because my child was diagnosed when he was 6. And what some people don't realize, that's considered a late diagnosis.
Yes, so is 4, right?
Right. And so there were a lot of things that were no longer available to us because
Right.
he had already aged out at 6. I was like,
Yes.
at
That
6?
at 6, because they start at what, 2 or something
At
crazy?
2. Yes. Yes. And so 24 months, I'm like, how can you tell it? This is so early. I was just thinking these are delays. Some people are
Yep.
wallflowers. Okay. You know,
Yep. He's just shy.
he's just shy.
He's
And
just
my
shy
little
like
boy,
me. I don't talk very much to people. He's just like his mama.
well, now, that's not my testimony, friend.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah. We
that's
know, Rochelle. You and I are like yin and yang, which is why we get along so well, right?
But I think for me, it was more like I had people telling me, well, since you had your 3 youngest so close to each other, they're almost like 18 months apart. It was like, oh, he's just regressing because there's a new baby in the house. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's normal. He's
Yes.
just, he doesn't want to give up the territory, and they're all boys, they're territorial.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm pushing it back. Then I'm sitting there, I'm like, no, he hasn't said mom. No, he used to say juice and he doesn't say it anymore. Then
Right.
it was, that kind of thing. So I totally get first, yes, go 100% for your kid.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, it got dark there for me for a minute, and I was like, I don't want anybody else to be in this darkness ever again. So I get it. So we're talking about that initial feeling with the
Yes.
denial, but now we at some point, like we were talking, we have to take that fear and that denial and turn it into action, right? And with that action, it also comes with another A word, acceptance.
Yeah.
So what was that
Yeah.
moment? That moment of acceptance for you?
I think when I finally realized that it wasn't going away. That it wasn't one of those
Mm.
things that I could pray away, right? There was no cure for it. Um, and honestly, that there was nothing wrong with my son. So there was no, yes, he learns differently. Yes, he interacts with the world around him differently, but there's nothing wrong with my son. And so once I accepted that he was fearfully and wonderfully made, right?
Yeah.
That he is made in God's own image, that he is everything that God intended him to be from the time he was in my womb until the time he was born, and that there's nothing I could have done to change it, then I accepted it.
Wow. I love that. That's it. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, if we this is a safe space, okay? So
Yes.
I'm gonna need you to understand. Um, um, I did not get to that place until probably about 3 years ago. I know it was during the
Hmm.
pandemic for
Yeah.
sure for me. Um, because it was very it was just I was like, no, I'm a great mom. I can fix this,
Yes,
you know?
ma'am.
And I think with me having two children with autism, my
Hmm.
oldest, no autism. Well, no diagnosis, but he's another GT kid, just top of
Yes.
his class. And he hit every milestone on
Yep.
time, if not before, reading, writing, reciting. I have a dream speech since he was like 6, all
Yeah.
these
All
things.
the
So
things. Yeah.
right,
Yes.
right. And so then my second child comes along, there's the delays. Okay, I get his diagnosis, but then my third child comes along, not so much the delays, but the emotion of it all. And it was like, wait, no, 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 because I was told this is autism, not this.
Right.
This looks different.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I was like, mm-mm, no, it's not autism. They're just putting a label on my black boys.
Right.
That's all it is. Because
Yes.
I tell people all
Yes.
the time, a lot of people like to be Martin. I like to go Malcolm a lot of times. I was like, okay, you know, and so, and so I had to sit back and go, okay, like you said, oh, this isn't getting better. Oh, I'm getting the phone calls from school. Oh, they're having to evacuate classrooms. Oh, he's not realizing running into traffic will harm him. Oh, okay. So this is going to be a fight that I'm going to have to fight.
Hmm.
And um, it I think another thing that hit me was because, um, like I said, I was like you going completely online, which is the worst thing. I think we both can
Yeah,
agree.
I wouldn't advise that to anyone who has a child that is newly diagnosed. Do not do it. Learn
Right.
from Rochelle and I. Do not do
Don't do it.
it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Resist the
Because
urge.
yes, because they had me running every which way but loose. Because the thing online in a lot of spaces is my child is now cured. My child is now cured. My child is not cured. And I was like, well, if their kids can do it, so can mine.
Right?
And it's difficult because this stuff isn't medically sound. This stuff
No.
isn't, and then you don't know, was this child medically diagnosed or is this a mom going off of a feeling, a hunch? You know,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? You don't know the
Yes.
backstories on all of this.
At all.
And
At all.
and, and so I felt myself doing things and then I had to stop and go, oh, this is not what's best for my child or for our household, you know?
Yes.
So I think that's what made me have to go, let me accept what it is. Not saying that I'm not believing God to do miracles and wonders in my
Right.
children's life.
That part.
Howsoever,
Absolutely.
howsoever, If this is what it is, if my child never gains another life skill, or if they continue to regress, I am accepting that I am still their mother.
Yes.
They still need love and guidance. They still have to be taught. And they are still, like you said before, beautifully and wonderfully made.
And they're not
So
broken. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. They're not
that part,
broken. And as a mom, we're fixers. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. Do our children need support in some areas more than other areas? And do they need
absolutely.
support more than their peers in that age group and so on and so forth? Absolutely. But I think you have to find community. You have to make sure they're, in our case, faith-based, right? Because that's
Yes,
where all of our help comes from, right? And then you want to make sure you find a church who's accepting, right? You don't want to just be going to a place to serve, or not going because you have some kind of, there's that word fear again, of what might
right.
happen when you, and I think I shared the story before that, I took my son to a church and they asked us to leave. And so it was a very
Mhm.
long time before I even went back, because I wasn't going and not taking my son, right? So I think there's just
Right,
a lot of things that you just have to be careful of, that you just make sure you find God in the details. Just make sure you
right.
find him.
And like you're
Yeah.
saying, finding God in the details. So then I guess the next question I would have, or someone may have, would be, so how did you start to see your child and see God differently? Like how did what, as we're moving through that acceptance, how did
Hmm.
that, really change how you saw your child and how you saw God working with faith, you know?
So I think, um, I don't know that I started to see God differently, because I knew who he was, and I always, you know, grew up in the church, and I always knew who he was and what he was capable of doing. So I don't know that I saw God differently. Did I lean on him differently? Did I call on him differently? Did I trust him differently? Did I exercise my faith differently? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was daily, right? It was something that I had to do daily, because you make it through one day, to your point, and then the next day comes and there's a new behavior, or there's a regression, or there's something that you have to do every day differently. And how did I start to see my son? Is I start to see him as a blessing, right? I started to
Mhm.
see him as, oh my goodness, God has really trusted me to raise this amazing young man who sees the world differently, who is not um, the follow the leader type, who is definitely unique, right? And has his own gifts and talents and all the things. And I can choose to see them as hindrances, or I can choose to see them as gifts that God has given him in a unique way. And so that's kind of how I have to frame it, or otherwise, it, it or otherwise there are days when you go down the hole. Like, let's just, like, there are just days that are tough. So if you don't frame your mind and your mindset and how you're thinking about things, it's going to be really hard to to
Yeah.
just to just go through every day. How about you?
Mm. Um, again, safe space, safe space. Oh, there was a good amount of time there where I was angry. I
Mhm.
I I was like, God, I don't even understand why. I don't understand why you would even make someone that would have all these struggles. Like, how, why?
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And what,
Mhm.
and no, God, I did everything right this time. I got married,
Mhm.
I went to church, I
Mhm.
did everything
Mhm.
the right way.
Yep. And here we
Why?
are. Mhm.
And here we are. Here we are. Other people's kids
Let's
aren't,
talk about it.
I know, and I know those other people because they were
How
doing
about
worse
that?
than what I was.
Yeah. Do they even know what the inside of a church looks like?
At all. Okay.
Yes.
But I knew I could say all 66 of my books of the Bible.
In order.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, and so it was one of those frustrating things for a good period there, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, it was probably the last. It started like about 3 years ago during the pandemic, but definitely I can say probably even more so now that I'm at Dayspring, um, because and it's not like, oh, Dayspring's this magical church or anything like that. It's more that it's where I am in life, and it just kind of lined up together. I'm at a
Yes.
place where I'm studying the Bible more seriously. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
being at a church that really encourages education of all types, but definitely spiritual education, study to show thyself approved unto God. That's like a really big tenet of Dayspring. It just it has helped me to get to a place where now I can believe in God for blessings that look nothing like what I expected them to look like. And that was the hard thing because
Yeah.
I had prayed to God, you know, um, uh, I am a musical theater girly,
Hmm.
My son loves music. I love gospel music. Gospel music to me, I could do a whole church service of nothing but gospel music. You don't have to have nary a preacher get up there, and I'm still gonna get a word. My son is the same way.
Yeah.
He told me the other day, I love church music. I said, and so does mama. And so
Yes.
does mama.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, it's one of those things where it was like, oh, okay, God, you answered my prayers, but I had to let go of control because I wanted God to answer my prayers the way I wanted it to be.
Right.
And I wanted my sons to look the way that I wanted them to look. I wanted them to have the lives that I envisioned in my head.
Yes.
And how dare God not go with my plan?
Hmm.
He not
Hmm.
consult me first. So I think for me, it definitely I'm growing and still healing into you know, this is my child, this is who God gave me, these are my children, and I am abundantly blessed to
Yeah.
have them.
And I think for me, right, and I think that's why this podcast is so important because, right, we have literally the whole, right, because as you know, my son is now an adult. And
Hmm.
so I hear everything you're saying, and in my head, I'm thinking that's exactly where I was when my son was about that age, right? But as the
Hmm.
years have gone by, not that it's gotten any easier, um, but it has gotten, maybe easier is the word. Maybe I'm just to a point now where I've accepted, right? Acceptance. And now this is what we have to do. Like there's still things that he needs quite a bit of support with. Again, there's a spectrum. There are other things that he can do literally with no support at all, right? And so I just thank God for those things that he is able to do, and then we just keep working through the things that he still needs support with. And so I just had to remind myself that again, God doesn't make any mistakes, right? He doesn't make any mistakes. Um, and Cameron's perfect. In God's
That's
eyes, he's perfect. And
that's
so I
that's
just need
that's
to see him through God's eyes every day, even on the
that's
hard days, even on the hard days.
that's true. I see we have a comment from Sister Cynthia. Hey, Sister Cynthia, thank you for
Hi,
watching and
Sister
always supporting.
Cynthia.
And yes, not only is your grandson a blessing to you, he is also a blessing to us. That young man can play the drums like nobody's business. You're not going to tell him he don't play the drum, and he is on post every Sunday. Okay, on time, ready to play. Okay, just let somebody call in. He's right there, ready to
That's
go.
amazing.
So
That's
he
amazing.
he's amazing, and it's just wonderful to see that that's her grandson, but it's wonderful to see grandparents that are active in the journey as well. So, and I think that's something that we have to, I was thinking about, this whole entire topic about, denial and acceptance and everything like that from the diagnosis. And I was thinking, okay, what would be some of the top things, I would tell somebody, you know, as they're going through that diagnosis, you know. Um, I'm going to give you like my first top two, and then you
Okay.
tell me what you want to add to it.
Okay.
I would say first, be honest about how hard it is. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with your loved ones, and be honest with God. Be honest.
Amen.
Um,
Amen.
I am my one of my boys is 12, the other one's 10, who have autism, and I am just now this year getting to a place where I'm like, let me show people how hard it is, because people see my boys in public, they see them with the headphones, they see me calm them down from beginning to have a meltdown or anything, and
Because
they're like,
see it,
oh.
we can see it coming.
Right. And they're like, oh, they're just so well behaved and they're doing so great. But they don't know, I mean, I've shared with you, you know, there are days that I'm on the phone and I'm fighting and fighting and fighting. And then
Hmm.
I'm fighting them just to put on shoes and a jacket or to brush their teeth. It's those things that because I wasn't being honest, I wasn't getting the support that I needed for so many years. And I was out here flailing, but
Hmm.
I'm trying to do it quietly so I don't disturb anybody. And then
Hmm.
feeling resentment because no one's throwing me a life jacket.
Yeah.
Well, girl, don't nobody know. Don't
Yeah.
nobody know, because I was
Yeah.
hiding it. Um, And then the second thing I would say, like we said before, stay off the internet. I know this is going to sound crazy because we have a podcast, so you can come to us, of course.
Yeah. Not that kind of internet. Don't go.
No,
Stop Googling. Stop going to
right.
WebMD. That's what we
Stop,
want.
stop Googling, and you have to pray for discernment about these Facebook groups. You know,
Amen.
I tell all parents when they're first getting that diagnosis, or they're kind of getting deeper into, like you said, we're in that journey of, we went from denial, now we're accepting it, and now we're like, okay, boots on the ground, let's get to work, right? I tell them, any group that you join, understand there's not going to be a group that you're going to agree with 100%.
Right.
So let it be like a compass to point you in directions of questions you may have for your child's occupational therapist or speech therapist or ABA, center. And then the stuff that you're like, oh, this is just bunk, this is trash,
Hmm.
um, ignore it. You're gonna have to do that. So I think those are my top two things that I would tell somebody that are just now getting into it. What about you? What are like your top two things that you would tell somebody that's trying to navigate from the denial to the acceptance?
So first, I'm going to agree with the two things you said because I absolutely positively, right, agree with those. Um, the next thing though that I would like to add is to find community. Find some people who you can tell the real, hard, honest truth to, right? And I'm going to say this with all the love in my heart. The people who do not have children with autism are not the people who can give you any kind of consolation, suggestions about
Mhm.
children with autism.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
Find a community of people who know what you're talking about, who have the
Yeah.
lived experience of raising a child who has autism.
Yeah.
Um, because
Yes.
people can say some really hurtful things out of what they feel like is support. And
Yes.
right.
Yes.
And I what I also would say to a parent is you know your child better than anyone else.
Ooh, I
So
like
when it
that.
comes time to go to school, or if you're going to homeschool, and people are, you know your child better than anyone else. Never allow anyone to exclude you from a conversation, whether it be a doctor, a teacher. Do not let them exclude your voice from a conversation about your child. And that goes for your child, whether your child has autism or not, but
Yeah.
especially if your child has autism or another kind of disability. Do not let people make decisions about your child without your input. And
Mm,
if your child is verbal, allow them to have their input as well. I just feel like that is very important, that a lot of decisions are made for us and not with us, or made to us, or for
yep.
whatever reason. People don't realize, you tell people that autism is a spectrum, but do they really think that? I don't
Right.
know. Because, well, this worked in this might not work. Like, and stay involved, right? And I'm always going to come from the educator point of view when it comes to things
Yeah.
like that. Stay involved, right? Once your kid does go to school, stay involved. Go to the meetings, make the phone calls, insist on communication. All of those things are really important, because whether you decide to send your kid to traditional school like I opted to, or whether you
Mhm.
decide to homeschool your child like Rochelle, you still have to make sure that you are vested in what it is you're doing for your child. So, on top of your two things, those are the two things that I would add.
I agree with that 100%. When my children were in public school, oh, I was that mom. Oh, they saw me at everything. And don't let me find out that there was a math night and my child didn't get the flyer. Oh, we're showing up for the math night. And now I'm going
Right,
to every booth and saying, okay, so did y'all let the sped classroom know that this was happening? Did they get the flyers? I'm making sure, because that's also part of their IEP, is
right.
that they're supposed to be included in these activities
Access.
as well.
Right.
Access.
You have to give them access.
Right.
Right,
So if you
right,
didn't tell us and you're like, oh well, they don't ever come, not my problem. I still should have got that information, because I'm gonna come. You
right,
gonna see me
right.
all the time. I saw one of the things that also one of our followers put up. They said, say no. You can say no. Also remember that you can say no. I think sometimes um, we let that fear and guilt, that if we say no to family events and birthday parties and or even church events, if we say no, then we'll be forgotten, or they won't ask us anymore, or we'll look like, oh, we we don't want to be a part of it anyway. And that's not true. You know your children, but I would even take it, like you said, but I would even take it a step further. You can always leave. I just realized this 6 months ago,
You can.
that
You, you
I
you always have the option to pack it up and roll out.
I'm a grown up, and I have car keys. And if this is getting to be too much, even for me, because sometimes the
Yes.
sensory of it all is even too much for me. I mean, sometimes we just have to be honest.
Well, and
It's
how about, Rochelle, when you start thinking about how long it's going to take the calm down piece at home, right? Once we've had all this stimulus, how long is it going to take? Like, how long is my son going to pace the bedroom before he can calm down enough to go to bed? Is he even going to calm down enough to go to bed? Or is this going to be one of those nights where we have to pull an all-nighter, right? So I am thinking, like, you
yes,
know what? 1 or 2 hours in here, and I can normally look at Cameron and tell when he is done. Or he'll start asking, when are we leaving? Right now?
yeah,
But or give me 15 minutes, or give me 30 minutes, whatever the case may be. But And my family knows they always are like, well, Cam's ready to go. They can they can start picking it up before I can start picking it up. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get mad, like, man, I'm not ready to go. And then in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be okay. Just go ahead
Yeah.
and go home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know,
yeah.
I know this is the first year that I'm we're not visiting family. We're not going anywhere. Because like I said, I just realized 6 months ago, I can say, yeah, this is a bit too much for us.
Hmm.
This is a little overwhelming. Like you said, afterwards, I can go home to this.
Yes,
Okay.
it. You guys get that, but I go home and I still got to do the whole calm it down routine.
Right. And like
Yeah.
and just to give y'all a preview, our next podcast is going to be how to prepare for the holidays. Look, Thanksgiving is always on a Thursday. Let me tell you, I can't speak for anybody else's child with autism, but my 12-year-old has been looking at the calendar since Halloween, telling me when Thanksgiving is and counting it down. And
Same.
not just Halloween. I messed up and bought a calendar that has Black Friday on there as a holiday. And I have to explain how we don't celebrate quote unquote Black Friday. They just want us to spend money. And then that's a whole story about, well, now let's count the money. Y'all don't understand.
Yes, I
Every
do.
oh,
Yes,
you
I
do.
do.
Everything, every river leads to a valley of more things. Yeah. I was like, nope, this year we're at the house.
Again, I try to accept that and see the beauty in that, right? That
Yeah,
there's never just a quick anything. There's always a path,
there's
and it
always a
doesn't really end until he wants it to end, right?
right.
So,
But I
yeah,
have to
what
not feel bad that,
right.
we're not gonna go to family. And honestly, I've even told family, I don't want y'all to come here. I need to experience a holiday with just him in his safe spaces.
Yes.
And
And it
and
will
see
be
what
so relaxing. It will be I'm trying to help you, Rochelle, and to help a mom who is listening. It is okay. Stay at home.
stay at home. It's okay.
Enjoy the holiday and the peacefulness of your home. So that way you can rest and enjoy the holiday as well.
That part. And I think one last thing we got to also remember, because we as parents, we have to make sure that we're staying rested. We keep
Yes.
forgetting that we get overstimulated. Being on eternal watch for your child,
Hmm.
who may not have the wherewithal to know that there's issues and problems coming, can be very
Right.
tiring, you know? And I think that ties back into the denial of it. Listen, we all know that being a parent takes a lot of work,
Hmm.
but you throw autism in there, am I cut out for this level of work?
You are.
Hey,
Because it's almost like that anticipation, right? You're always trying to, and I'll just use my I statements. I'm always trying to anticipate, right? And
yes,
sometimes I over anticipate, sometimes I under anticipate.
right.
Either way, it doesn't work out well for me.
It doesn't.
Unless I am spot on, which is rare,
Yeah.
there's going to be some kind of repercussion to how much I planned or how much I did. And I
And
think another part of the acceptance that I had to accept, Rochelle, was that I'm never going to get it right 100% of the time.
oh, don't speak to the perfectionist in me. Stop it.
Or in me. So I'll just have to be okay with not being 100% all the time. And I'm not always going to get it right. No mom is always going to get it right. But you always feel that extra thing, um, that you try to protect your kid from anything that's going to like overstimulate them or hurt them or anyway. That's a topic for
That's a
another. Another
But
show.
it does tie in because if you really look at it, part of the denial is like I said, I'm perfect. I know that I am a great mom, and I know because I already have an older child that
I've done
that
this before.
I've done this before. I didn't change anything. I
Yes.
made this recipe. I know how it's supposed to come out the oven. Why is this? No, no. Okay, this isn't right. This isn't, you know. And I think that's
Right.
part of the denial for a lot of us, for a lot of the parents, and a lot of the moms. And you do see it in the dads as well. Culturally, and many cultures, a lot of the men see that as a reflection on themselves.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
especially if it's their sons, because this is
Ooh.
supposed to be
Ooh.
in my image. What do you mean? He's going to do all the things that I did when I did it, even if I didn't actually do these things. In my mind, I did them.
Right. Right.
So he's going to drive a car at 16, and he's going to play little league and all of these things. And
Yeah. Yep.
you know, that's a lot to take in. So as we kind of get to a place where we kind of get to the end of our podcast, and about going from diagnosis to denial to acceptance, I want to ask you just just one last word, like, how do you take this test of going on a journey with your child with autism? How do you take this test and find a way to make it a testimony?
Hmm. You
That,
asking all the hard questions tonight, Rochelle. Um, so I think the first thing is the acceptance, right? You have to
yeah,
understand that what you're feeling is real. And I think you summed it up perfectly with all of your commentary tonight. Like you have to be honest and be able to tell your testimony the way it really is.
hmm,
Because the truth of your testimony, it's what is going to give somebody else the freedom. And for so long I was silent. Silent.
wow,
Like I was
wow,
just silently being a mom, doing what I needed to do. And then one day I met a mom who was, I could tell that if I didn't say something, her day was going to be. And the first time I ever said out loud, I know where you are, I know where you've been. This is how, and we started to have a conversation. I felt better. And she was like, I know God sent you. And to this day, she and I still are in communication.
wow, I love
And
that.
I really believe God forced me, because as much as I, am an educator and I'm not a big talker. Like I that's just not, I would much rather be in the background, kind of doing my thing. When God tells me to say something, I say it. When he like I'm very, so that is kind of what allowed me to open my mouth. And once I saw her reaction, I was like, yeah, okay. And I think about all the times that people have said things to me about their stories that helped me. And so I feel like I have an obligation to do the same
Yeah,
for, to your point earlier, for other moms who may be, and again, like Cameron's an adult. So I've been through some things. I've
yeah,
seen some things. We're still
yeah.
navigating some things, but for the parents who have younger children, I have wisdom. There are things that I've, my lived experience that can help someone, and who am I to not share that with someone else? So, how about you?
I would say definitely for me, it is um, and I feel like this about all my every part of my life, not just, me being a mom of children with autism. I think it's I've experienced things, and when I don't talk about it because of how my personality is, people are just like, "Oh, Rochelle, she got it. Oh, what does she know?" And then when I sit back and I'm like, "What do you mean I don't know about this? I did X, Y, and Z." Like, I'm 42. I know things. I've
Yeah.
seen things. I've lived
Hmm.
life, you know. Um, but like you said, I think there's also that discernment there, um, that I had to learn over time. Some of my testimonies are for specific people.
Yep.
Some of
Agreed.
some of the things that I've experienced and how I came out of them, some of the struggles that I had with my boys, I had to learn. There's some people, all they want to do, they will call you up knowing that you have this resource, but they don't really want the resource. They just want to dump it all on you. And I had to learn. I had to learn, I don't have the space to take on
Right.
your battles as well.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I'm here to encourage you, to help you and point you into directions, but you're also building your own testimony,
Hmm.
you know? And so when I think of it as like we're all part of a big web, you know? Uh, your testimonies and your stories help me. I needed that because when you came into my life, I was like, so this is it forever and ever, amen. So what happens when they do get older? What happens? And
Hmm.
I'm so glad that you have your blog and you have this podcast because there aren't a lot of moms that talk about that, about the adulthood side of, you
Hmm.
know, preparing, caregiving and supporting and parenting adults with autism.
And, and they are still an adult.
And they're still an adult. But
Like there's nothing about him that is youthful. He is a grown
grown
man
man.
and reminds me of it every day.
But you
So
know
the
what?
struggle.
You
Whew,
saying that though, you saying that helps me also remind myself they're still children.
yeah,
That's something that I tell people all the time. Remember, you have a child with autism. You are parenting an adult with autism, but the qualifier of that is the child,
an adult.
the adult. You
Yes,
see what I'm saying? And
yes,
so there
yes.
are times where it's not the autism that my baby boy is dealing with. It's him being a child who wants his way when he wants it. The
Yes.
end. It's he's a preteen now and he's tired of my mouth. So he wants me to be quiet. you know,
Yes.
it,
Yes.
it's it's that. And so when you remember that, and so that's what has helped me kind of see these tests as multiple testimonies, not just one big group, one large testimony. It's multiple. It's a spectrum of testimonies,
Yes.
if you will, that I
Yes.
can share with a spectrum of families and parents. So that's that. Um, I hope that today, as we talked about going from diagnosis through denial to acceptance, I pray that something was said that has encouraged you. I pray that you shared this with your friends and that we want to reach as many families as we can because we want them to know that they're not alone and we want them to know that there is beauty in this. There's hard times and there's beauty, and we're going to be honest about it all the way through. So if you're looking for a space where you are welcomed, where you can ask questions, there's no bad question. Where you can ask questions, where you can open up your heart. Say that you're scared. Say that you're worried. I and Dr. Yolanda, we are here at the Ask a Mom podcast, and we want to hold that space for you. We want to create a community of moms, of parents, of dads, of grandparents, of caregivers, so
Right.
that we don't have to go through this journey of autism with our children alone.
And remember, if you have something that you want to ask us, you can email us at askingautismmompod@gmail.com. If this episode spoke to your heart, again, share it with another mom who needs to hear it, another caregiver who needs to hear it, a sibling who needs to hear it. Please share, share, share on all platforms. But before we go, I'd like to pray for us and for any mom who might be watching. And then we'll let you enjoy the rest of your night. Do you have any closing remarks, Rochelle, before we close out in prayer? Anything you'd like to say?
Absolutely not. Go ahead and close us out in a wonderful prayer because I know that you
All
got
right. Lord, I just thank you for walking us through every part of this journey. I thank you for being with us even through the parts of this autism journey that hurt. Thank you for allowing us to share how we can go from diagnosis to denial to acceptance. I ask that you help every parent, God, who is listening to release fear, to embrace truth, to see the beauty that you've placed in their child. Give us the peace, God. Give them the peace to accept what we cannot control and the faith, God, to just trust you through it all and help us to believe, God, that you are working it all out for our good. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Ask an Autism Mom, a podcast, part of the Touching You Talk Show network that has been put together by Elder Sheila Black. And join us back here next month, the third Tuesday of the month, as we will be talking about how you can prepare yourself, your child, and your family for the holidays. This has been Ask an Autism Mom. See you next month. Bye.
See ya. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.